Sorry. Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of May 19th, 2011 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Mr. Insua.
Here.
Ms. Palmer. Mr. Simonian.
Present.
And Mr. Yu. A report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on May 12, 2011. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of the agenda?
We don't have any speaker
No
cards
cards.
other than the projects.
Okay. We're down to the review calendar. Staff has no announcements at this point. There is nothing on the consent calendar, so we're down to our regular cases.
Very good. Our first project this evening, and our only project this evening, is Project 1 PDR 2011-011-A. Project address 1912 Sussex Court. Why don't we have the staff report on the project?
Plans and give you a quick tour. This project is, as mentioned, a new single family on an upslope lot located in an R1R floor area District 2 property. The subject property has a very large oak tree on the subject lot, and in the neighboring lot there is a stand of indigenous trees, both oak and sycamore. The subject project has gone through a conditional use permit for the average current slope of the lot and has been granted 3 variances. The first variance is for the driveway to be located on a neighboring lot, not coming off of its own property. Second variance is for the driveway slope, where a portion exceeds the maximum requirement. The third variance is for retaining walls along the driveway. Now, the 3 reasons for the variance are basically because of the indigenous trees that are on the property. The applicant was trying to devise a driveway that would be able to protect all of those existing trees that are there, and that's the reason for the driveway being shaped the way it is. The plan has been reviewed by the city's arborist and as well as the driveway, and meets their requirements. The house is located toward the back of the property, be able to protect the large oak tree in the front. It meets the interior setbacks as well as the floor area, lot coverage, and landscaping requirements. We have before you the landscaping plan, which shows the proposed and existing trees and plants and shrubs out on the property. Over here I have the first floor plan. They're proposing a 2-car attached garage. You can see it's facing the north, away from the street. It's not visible from the street. The second plan I have here is the second floor plan, and then the roof plan. Over here I have the elevations, the north elevation. See the garage door. There's a patio located at the back and a roof deck over here. The house is built into the hillside. It's compliant with the hillside design guidelines. You can see from the south elevation how it steps up into the hill. Also have the west elevation for you, as well as some perspective drawings and then some sections. Staff believes that the Staff is recommending approval of the proposed project, and it's available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for staff on the project?
Mr. Collins, can you elaborate a bit as to the history of this case as it pertains to the different entitlements they've gone through, and specifically some conversations that have taken place with the city arborists, and how that relates to the positioning of the home? Just to give us some background.
Do you want to come back up, or?
However you think it's the best way to handle it.
Well, the neighboring property, which is the one where the driveway comes up through, originally was zoned SR, which is a special recreation zone. Originally, the applicant had tried to have the driveway coming off of his own property and applied through the Public Works Director, and he can give you more details on this. But basically, he applied through the Public Works Department to try and have the driveway come off of his own property and meet code requirements zoning-wise. Well, because of that large oak tree, the Public Works Department and city arborists were very concerned as to the damage that the potential driveway would have on the root system and the trees that was there, and unfortunately denied, or fortunately in order to protect the tree, but it made the project more challenging, was denied having the driveway there. So the applicant was forced to find another solution to be able to access the property. In so doing, the only way that he could come in off of the SR property was to go through a zone change. So he went through a zone change to change the property, which is the one with the stand of indigenous trees, from SR to R1R. In addition, he also went through the process. When you do a zone change, you're also required to do a general plan amendment and a map amendment, which was also part of the first step, basically, the applicant did in being able to go forward with the first step of the process. After that was approved, then it was required to go through the CUP, or conditional use permit process, as well as the variance process, as mentioned, because of the driveway coming in off of the neighbor's property. Because of the slope of the lot, because of the location of the indigenous trees, the driveway had to be over the allowable percentage for driveway slope because of the tree requirements for protection of that, and because of the slope of the lot. In addition, the retaining walls, which are holding up the driveway, also had to be over height within a certain distance of the property line, over 5 feet within 3 feet. Again, that was to protect the trees that are indigenous to that part of the property. So the driveway, as you see, comes in from a neighboring property, which has an existing single-family house on it, and they have granted the applicant an easement to be able to come over a portion of their lot, and then as it slopes up, it comes onto the subject property next door, and then onto the property in which the house is going in on. Does that answer your
Yes.
question?
Thank you. And the west elevation is what will be along Sussex Avenue? Along the street is the west
elevation is what will be facing Sussex. That's correct.
Okay.
You're good?
Thank you.
Okay. You're good? Okay. Very good. Thank you, Brad. Very thorough. Why don't we have...
Good evening. My name is Alan Malikian. My address is 2255 Honolulu Avenue, Montrose, 91020. I'm the designer of the project. Brad did an exceptional job explaining the chronological order of the history of the project. The The location of the site, the pad, is, when I took over the project, the pad was located in its current position, and I've studied quite a bit, and I think the history behind it and everybody looking at it, I think it was located the most optimal location, minimizing the amount of grading, reducing the impact, or eliminating impact to the protected trees, and allowing the nestling of the building into the hill, and trying to create as little retaining wall at the top level that can be used and create an outdoor space, some sort of a usable outdoor space, being that it's a very steep lot. The design of the project itself is a contemporary Moroccan style. Moroccan elements like geometrical patterns, curved lines, and lavish exterior ornamentation, charming gardens and courtyards are taken into design of the home, infused with simple contemporary lines to create a fresh architecture. Embossed Moroccan geometric patterns will adorn the parapet of the second floor and some parts of the first floor. Carved wooden elements and ornate metal work will also be visible throughout the exterior of the home. The house will also feature sprawling pockets of charming gardens throughout the side and upper deck, and being the focal point. The minimizing the amount of footprint that we can, and by looking at it, I think the best view to understand the least amount of impact and the most visible part of the project is looking at the section of the building itself. What it's doing is it's hiding away all the retaining and all the potentially the most impacted parts of the building within the hillside itself. The driveway, as it comes up, approaches into the driveway, the front of the garage. That area was created to be able to house guest parking and be able to access the building, and thus you see the north elevation there. By playing with volumes, I wanted to bring a little bit more of this contemporary, but yet still the soft Moroccan style, and minimize the amount of windows that are being used to all the necessary rooms and what the lighting that will be required to have to light every room. The deck in front that you see on the west elevation, the balance, the the off balance of the solid versus the wooden trellis, they both play two roles. One is obviously the deck area that is going to be used by the family room and the living room, but at the same time we've done some lighting studies to mitigate the amount of sun that goes into the spaces. The windows that we're using, the materials that we're using are wood windows. They're going to be stained wood windows. The windows that are not accessible or very difficult to be accessed, which will be primarily on the south elevation, those three windows are going to be aluminum clad. And the rest of them are solid wood windows. We have been looking into doing different environmental studies. We are going to try to mitigate as much as we can to accommodate the green building. We have been in contact with consultants to help us with some of the research that needs to happen in order for us to reduce the energy and bring the efficiency to the building itself. And you know, we've tried to accommodate most of the comments that it came. Actually, the two primary comments that it came from the CUP was to provide the guest parking and also pedestrian access from the street, which we managed to do that. We also managed to create a turnaround or the area that you see on the north side of the parcel, that area is going to be used primarily for people to either they need to back out or turn around area, that if nobody is up there or they need to kind of go out. And that addresses most of the elements there. So I will, if you have any questions or anything, that.
Quick question.
Just for clarification, it appears that the same sort of steel trowel or smooth trowel
Yes.
stucco plaster that you're putting on the residence is also going to be part of the retaining walls, or is that, what was your thinking?
Well, the retaining walls, obviously, we cannot wrap them with plaster. So what we're going to do is we need to either, we have the option of either using, the what do you call it, the split face block, which I hate that. But what I think, personally, but I think what we can do is we can do a pour-in-place concrete, having a little bit more of a smooth finish there. And both Naz and I were both very concerned about that, and we want to make sure that we do design something that it complements the project and the building itself. So we have very limited options there. I think we're moving towards the pour-in-place concrete than anything else. Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant?
A couple of questions, and it might be best if you
Sure.
could perhaps come up here, because it's a very complicated design and very much worked out, as we could see. The exterior spaces, the exterior landscape spaces and the deck spaces, and the relationship to the building and as far as the street is concerned, will this area be very, we have this, that's the visible area, right?
This area is primarily here with profile would be, yes, there.
On the side. And because when I was at the site, I was looking up, and there was the story poles, but it was hard to get to it because one would need hiking shoes to get up there.
Yeah.
So when this building is perched up at the top here, who could see the building? In other words, are there homes at a higher elevation, at higher ridges, that would see perhaps the east or the south
There is a
elevation?
possibility for somebody can actually see portions of it, but I highly doubt,
The
because
top portions, maybe.
this actually continues up further.
I see.
We're not all the way to the top, but it actually goes up further. If you see the contour lines here, so we're at the let's say 121. This is 140. So there's a substantial
20 more feet.
Yeah.
And so when this home is, this is the ridge up here?
pretty much, yeah.
I see.
That's the ridge. So primarily the most effective part of the visible side would be primarily from Sussex. There may be some, because the slope is coming down, there may be some view from there, but there are planting and there are trees there that block. But obviously it's not an invisible house, so
Right.
people are going to be able to see.
And then this is the turnaround you were referring to?
Yeah, the turnaround, actually, I was more talking
I
about
see,
this.
right.
Potentially, what it'll do is, what it's showing is that if a guest drives up, and then if they don't have a turnaround, or they can have another car here, let's say, they can actually back out here, I guess, parking, and then go out,
I
so that
see.
they don't have to back all the way out, because this driveway is going to be really
Steep and hard to maneuver.
Yeah.
So on a daily basis, the owner, you envision kind of coming, backing up here?
The owner will probably, whoever's going to be getting into the garage, they can go ahead and back out and then go out.
I see.
That's how it, as far as the backing. They're not going to back out. There's a solution for it.
And then as far as these retaining walls and their impact on these oaks,
Right.
they're within the drip line, right?
Right.
Has that been assessed? as-
Actually, all of these the retaining walls have been very closely studied by the arborist, and they've gone back and forth with Amory, and There are some recommendations, and actually there was a grading plan that was done during the CUP that actually showed the profile of the retaining walls, and there's an actual drain pipe that goes through there as well.
There's some sort of an easement or
Yeah,
something.
and I think that's pretty much the drain pipe that goes through there.
Underneath
But
the driveway?
Underneath, so there's going to be a lot of different maneuvering of sorts by avoiding the roots and also the pipes and the drain pipes and everything, so there's going to be quite a bit of challenge. And he is going to be on staff, and he's going to be retained through the grading process that make sure that he's going to be on site when they're actually excavating. If there's any exposed roots or anything, he can mitigate that or,
At that point in time.
yeah.
Laborious process. Okay. Thank you.
Did you say arboreous process? Arboreous process.
No, that was it. Thank you.
The next speaker is landscape architect, please. Your name and address for the record, please.
Judy Palmer, 2941 Oakendale Place, La Crescenta, 91214. I think most of it has been discussed, but you can see there's numerous trees on the site, and they're primarily oaks and sycamores. No trees are being removed, and that we've added minimum landscaping. There's a lot of existing ground cover. We haven't removed that. So there's minimum landscaping that will, to enhance the house as well as complement the varieties of trees. And the house can be seen as you drive up the street, but once you get to the cul-de-sac and look up, that large oak completely hides it. And as the architect stated, there's minimal views at the top. So two sides will have some open views, and then the rest of it will be shaded by the oaks. So it's pretty well hidden. Any questions? No. Thank you.
Ms. Palmer, I do have a quick question. I noticed in the landscape plan, you mentioned that many of the existing landscape is going to stay and retain. When we look at the really nice renderings there, we see a lot of green ground cover. Is that an accurate depiction of what we'll be seeing there?
No, there's ground cover under all the oaks already, and there's ground cover on the hillside. The lower portion
Right in here?
in there and down that south side.
South side, right.
They'll have ground cover in there, but the rest of it is just natural, either the ground cover that's existing under the oaks or the natural leaf fall.
And is this existing ground cover right now currently being irrigated, or is it?
It's just, it doesn't need to be irrigated because it's so shaded and it lives on its own.
Good. Well, that's
So,
good.
and we've all the plant material that's designated there as plant material that goes with the oaks as well as the hillside guidelines. So, but it's just minimal to help the base of the building, add some few accents so the homeowners have something to look at. And as I say, one side's got sun, the other side is primarily shaded. Okay?
Very good, thank you. And then the final speaker, forgive me for
Thank you. I'm the owner. My name is Nadeem Haider, 7280 Hillside Avenue, West Hollywood, Los Angeles, 90046. I think someone mentioned this is laborious. Actually, I call it a labor of love. I work for Disney. My job is making movies, and let's just say I've been trained for the last 20 years. I have to make very, very difficult movies and television series, so this is a shade of it. But what really it shows is being persistent about trying to do something you really like and you really value. And one of the things is the environment. When I looked at this land, I love all the trees, and I want to make sure that I preserve all of them. So Brad mentioned the 4 years of process that I've gone through. What he didn't mention, that the land that I am using, which used to be the bridal park, used to be owned by someone else. And it was pure miracle that I found out who the owner was, and they didn't even know that they owned the land. So I eventually ended up buying that land because the city had the easement. They didn't have the underlying rights to give me permission to build the driveway. So that was truly the breakthrough. I knew that it was going to be a challenging project going through the contour, but I felt that that's the right thing to do, and I've taken every measure to make sure that the environment is impacted. My aspiration is to make it as energy efficient as possible, as environmentally conscious as possible, and that's basically what you're looking at. So if you have any question regarding the energy modeling that we are doing and anything environment we're doing, I'm here to answer your questions.
Very good, sir. Very good. No more speaker request card. You're very good. Okay.
I had one more question for Mr. Malakian,
Sure, Mr. Malakian,
which
would you
I
mind?
apologize for not asking earlier.
Your name and address, please, for the record.
Alan Malikian, 2255 Honolulu Avenue.
Mr. Malakian,
Should I come
are
up?
These, no, I don't think so. Are these solid canopies?
No, they are not solid, but they are trellis type, and the size and the actual structure itself, we're actually we've retained the engineers, so we're working with them. I have to find the material. It may actually turn out to be steel and then made out of steel because of the cantilever, the thinness of that. But if I can manage to be able to do that with wood, which what I think we both, Naz and I, will prefer, then I have to make sure that it meets the fire zone requirements and the thickness and the nominal and the cantilevering elements of that.
I see.
So there's a process that I still need to go through with the engineers trying to figure out what is the right material to use. But it's not solid. It does have louvers inside, so it's going to be situated in a way that the distance between them will be enough that it will give me, it'll
Blocks
cast
the
a
sun.
shadow. Exactly. It won't be
Afternoon
wide
sun.
enough that the sun, it will be narrow. It won't be narrow enough that you're better off making a solid surface. So.
And insofar as the stamped foam work around the parapets, do you have an idea of what that is? Is the pattern illustrated on the material board anywhere?
It's the pattern. I still need to. Either we're going to make that pattern. I'm probably going to have a pattern made out of EFIS board kind of a thing, and then use that as my stamp, and then basically cut out the EFIS boards, the certain thicknesses, and then be able to place that onto the brown. We'll do the scratch, we'll do the brown, we'll attach that, and then everything else will be smooth in the same cohesive color and finish. So that's probably a quick thought process. We've looked at it, and I think that's the approach. It's either that or essentially carving out of a 2x and then getting maybe a 2x12 and then basically cutting it out and attaching it and then building that up.
Which
I
is hard
think
to maintain.
Yeah, which I think EFIS would work better as far as it's not readily accessible and you don't get to touch or break in. So EFIS has always been my concern to use when there's a lot of traffic. But up there in the parapet, I think it should be fine.
And the curved, these curved
Right,
features,
right.
was that derived from some indigenous Moroccan style, or
It's as you know, this is not the architectural style that I'm a lot familiar with. So we did a lot of research with the help of Naz and sending photos for us to do a lot of research. We found a lot of elements there, and I wish I brought the packet that we have like this much of a studies and different images and different areas, and primarily in North Africa and in Southern Europe, kind of places that you would find these types of architectural style. And so we've kind of taken elements that we appreciated, but yet bringing it in all into if I use that curve everywhere, I think it wouldn't have been as effective as I used it at certain spaces there that I think it's a lot more effective. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Why don't we close the public portion of the
project, and why don't you begin us with Mr. Simonian with your thoughts?
Well, this has been a long-winded project, several years in the making. I had a brief conversation with Mr. Collins earlier this afternoon, and we went through the process, and I got a better idea of all the discretionary approvals that had really gone into this, and more importantly, just the collaboration between the different departments. My initial thought when I started looking through the package was, why not just put the home a little closer to the street? That was the initial concept. Of course, there's that magnificent 38-inch oak right along the way that has just this amazing, drip line. So it's such a conundrum because what you've been forced to do is just create this road and create this pad up there, and to go through this laborious exercise of trying to make this home fit into this site by acquiring properties next door and et cetera. Meanwhile, there's a very direct approach of just put the home right in the front and replace that magnificent oak with lots of other oaks, But we're coming in at the late stages here. I mean, what has transpired here is many hearings, many decisions, and obviously there was very strong conversation with the arborists, and the city arborists felt as though that oak was significant enough to go through this process of putting in that road and moving the home farther up the hill. And so I'm really approaching this discussion with a given fact is that road is there. It's been discussed upon. It's already been approved by different agencies, and so that house and its current location has been worked out with the other hearing officers. And so now when we look at the design, I think the design is very unique, and it's well thought out. It has a lot of features to it. It has a lot of articulation to it. It certainly is not the typical hillside home, and some of the hillside guidelines are not as present in it. However, when one really looks at it closely, you do see that it is terracing up, which is something I realized after really assessing it quite a bit, was the terracing up that occurs in this section, and that wasn't apparent to me right away. And so it does nestle the hillside. It does actually hide a lot of the retaining walls behind the house, and it does follow many of the guidelines in that aspect. The flat roof of it is, of course, something different that isn't usually looked upon in the hillside guidelines as appropriate. However, because of the unique location of it, and there's limited access to it visually from the adjacent properties, and as we start really looking at it from Sussex, it works and it does fit in. So I think you guys did a wonderful job over this amazing 4 years of trying to make it all work, and it's a thought-out process. I was asking about those wood canopies because they are somewhat out of the way and hard to access, and so with this amount of wood, these projects look great if they're just maintained every 6 months or so, or they really take on a different flavor, and so that is one thing which I'm sure the homeowner understands and is willing to do. But I think the wood really softens it up. If it's not for that softness of the wood, the project would be very austere, and so I think that's important to understand the maintenance of it on the long term to for it to always look pretty like this. So while I support the project in its different aspects, and looking at it from the different angles, it's thought out. There's a lot of articulation and so forth. So I'd be curious to see what the rest of the group has to say on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Yu?
I think this is one of those projects where, right, by the time it gets to us, it's been through this whole journey of things, and I guess I admire the persistence to sticking to it, and as problems kind of arose, you found solutions to get there, and I think that the placement of the actual building on the site, I have no problem with. I think it is the place where it makes the most sense, especially with the existing conditions of the trees and those things. And you found a way to get the road up there. Took a little twisting and turning, but it got up there, and I think that, you found a way to get there, and I think in that sense it makes sense. You were very sort of very cautious about the trees, and I think you said that there was no trees that are coming down because of it, and so that's very commendable. The building itself appeals to me in the sense that it's a modern building, and it's got modern edges and ridges, and the way that the massing is broken down as it steps down, as it turns into large piece to small piece, the use of materials, wood, and those kinds of things. It gets a little lost in the Moroccan portion of it for me. I understand that the pattern is going to be there, but as we also look at a lot of projects that say that they're Spanish or the Mediterranean, there's a lot of applied stuff that goes on there, and so I just want to be careful that that's not the only thing that's on there. I think there might be a little bit of maybe portions of it that I guess opportunities that might have been lost, because when I think of the Moroccan architecture, I think of a lot of sort of screening of patterns and those kinds of things, where things are sort of hidden until you get closer and veiled, and those kinds of features. A lot of detail in that fenestration, in the tile work or the stone work that's there, and I think some of that maybe could enhance the building a little more. I think the patterning of the crown of the top portion of the parapets is a good start, and I think it's maybe try to take that to the next level. I saw the pattern, the Moroccan pattern, where the screen, and I was trying to look for it, see where it was, and maybe that can translate into maybe parts of the wall or retaining wall that gets maybe that kind of pattern to emphasize it a little bit more. I like the back portion where you have the yard in the back. I think that's very well done with the different levels and getting up there. It's well done. And the only portion that I kind of am questioning is the balconies that are coming out onto the, I guess that would be the west side. And in the perspectives that you have up there, and it looks good, but that's sort of taken at a, if you were floating sort of 40 feet up in the air, kind of looking straight at them. And I'm worried that if you're looking down from the street, all you would see is the bottom of the balconies and the retaining portion, and that's all you would see of the house. And so it would look like this huge mass with like a little canopy sticking out of it. And I don't know, I guess, what we could do, because I do like the curved walls that are sort of bookmarking the balconies. I think that's very appropriate, and it looks really nice. But as it turns the corner on the sort of the bottom side of it, I think it loses a lot of that. And so maybe some way of softening that up. Maybe it does the same thing and turns back. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But I think that side of it, it's almost like a fifth elevation, where instead of the roof, it's the bottom portion of that needs a little bit of work. But I think the project and the overall massing of it, I think it looks good, and I would support the project with that.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize and then gather my thoughts. When I hear of a project like this, it's taken this long, not a lot of people would endure such time, especially acquire the project, and then you have to go through all these processes, and you're paying for the dirt, as they say. So you're to be commended. A little tongue-in-cheek, I think this is the process, if you will. You still got to do the working drawings, submitting, plan check, and then your construction comes. So we're at the front end, although you've gotten a lot of the heavy lifting out of the way now. I suggest you change the name of the street to Success Sussex, because it's really a success story by you, tenacity as the owner. And when I say success, I see success by your vision of what you wanted to do for this project, how you wanted to act. Often you get variances and conditions to do something because you don't want to follow the rules. You have to do a variance. You, in fact, got variance to really already there, and you want to preserve trees, and you want to preserve as much as possible there. So you're also to be commended that your approach to the project is taking the time, as costly as I'm sure it was, to get those variances so that you could develop your project and not just destroy, mature oak trees and mature specimens just to get your home. So you're to be commended there. I think it's a success story also when you put together of a great architect and a great landscape architect, those visions coming together, and all the other professionals that you've hired. The result of that is a successful project. Often, when you miss those important components, a project suffers and struggles. See it all the time up here. Why is this project suffering and struggling? You have people that know what they're doing, and a result of that, I think it's a very good, well-executed project. I think the city should be commended on being successful because you worked closely with the arborists and closely with the land planning people and the planning department to get what your vision was. So, you successfully worked with the city. You to be commended with that. Often you're trying to butt heads with the city, and this does nothing but delay a project and on the bad foot. So, again, success and your tenacity, you all should be commended because I think at the end of this, you're going to have a terrific project. Some of my thoughts, my co-commissioners have said it. The landscape has been explained to me. You're going to retain as much of the native landscape that's there, and the natural irrigation is already keeping those things alive. You're to be commended for doing that. And any modifications you have to do, terrific. You're also not using a lot of dirt. You're doing it all within 1,500. Do that on a hillside project. Most of the time, you're exporting a lot of stuff, so you're to be commended there. I won't say anything with the architecture. I think it's done very, very well. There's always some little things that you can continue to explore. As Mr. Yu is saying, these floating balconies over here look really good on the drawings, but maybe when you see them and when you start working out some of those things, you may want to ground them. I think they're fine, but as Mr. Yu is saying, it might be something you want to spend a little time because you're looking at it from a different angle. I think the renderings of what they're showing is terrific because I like the way that you're framing these, and then you got the landscape here, so I like it. But, there's always a little more touches that you can do. Definitely some material. Those retaining walls. It isn't split-face block. Please. Design and split-face or I would rather use precision block and then let that speak the way you want. If you can get away with it with retaining Moroccan texturing, maybe sometime you'll work it out. But if you're right, not using split-face project here. And then in wrapping up, my co-commissioners said it well. Great. I see that with a little bit of sprinkling of Moroccan, whether it be the textured above and in some of that the those walls, that's contemporary language. So in wrapping up, I think it's going. So, Mr. Simonian.
Well, that comment that Mr. Yu was making about the balconies, we could come up with some landscaping right along this portion, which would be here, where Ms. Palmer could, recommend some clinging vines that could cling on that wall, maybe some mid-sized shrubs in this area. The other option is, of course, another retaining wall here and then slope the dirt, and then to texture that retaining wall.
Right. Well, bringing, I guess, that surface back down, or, the cantilevering I have no problem with. I just think that it might look too massive. So, I'm okay with just suggesting that they take a look at it and, they come up with something. I'm perfectly fine with that.
One recommendation. Anything else, Mr. Simonian?
No.
You, anything else that comes to mind that maybe you want to
Do we want Mr. Malikian to address the balcony?
Oh, did you want to come up?
Personally,
Yeah,
I think we're just giving suggestions,
Yeah.
and unless you
feel strong about coming.
your name and
Alan Malikian, 2255 Honolulu. if you notice the contour of the hill, if I bring that wall down, what it's going to do is it's going to raise the height of the building.
Right.
from the
No,
lowest to
I'm
the
not
highest point.
suggesting you bring it down. I
Right.
just think that you need to treat it in a way so that it's not just like an empty,
Right.
you know.
And then as far as the details, I don't know if you can, if you go up close, really close, the columns and all the ornate details of those columns and everything is going to be hand carved, and it's going to
Right, I
create a
can
lot
see
of the
the-
details and stuff like that. So a lot of those elements and some of those, wrought iron work that it's going to happen in front, by the front entry door and everything else. So,
So the Moroccan pattern that you have on here, it's on the door itself?
actually, can I see that? Let me just. The Moroccan pattern, the tile work, it's actually that pattern is there, but the tile work that you have, we have a couple of tile works that are in the front step as you stepping up to the.
Oh, so it's on the ground.
So on the ground level, so you have a lot more interactive elements there that you can actually feel. But the top, the detailing, it's part of the plaster itself. So if any pattern is going to be, it's going to be as same color, same finish as the plaster. So it's just going to be shadowing of those elements, the pattern.
No?
We have one recommendation of looking at that area, especially on the west elevation underneath those overhangs, perhaps with landscaping. Unless you may want to add or you
No,
explore.
just continue looking at it. I don't.
Okay. Brad, do you have any, what have you written that you want to say?
Well, I've got two things depending on what the board's interested in, and I also wanted to ask that staff had recommended a condition as part of the staff report. Just wondering if the board wanted to incorporate that with the other suggestions you're thinking about.
Okay,
or-
let me see if I can find
Can you
it.
let us know
On
what that
page
was?
5, it basically says to submit catalog cuts to be
Okay, cut
clearly
sheets,
indicated on the plans for staff's review, including trellis, duct reveals, exterior doors, particularly the entry door, trims and railings, wood windows, to ensure the construction will be consistent with the plan submitted and approved by the board. Details for cantilever decked edges, parapet walls, railings, and windows should also be submitted.
Now, is that something that we require of other projects as well?
It's a typical
Pretty standard.
condition that we've been asking for lately.
I think when you're doing a new project. Yeah, maybe. Alan, if you don't mind.
Al Malikian, 2255 Honolulu. The catalog cut sheets, I'm fine with providing you for the windows and other manufacturing products. The rest of the details, we're going to actually have to prepare and put them in part of the plans, and that's going to be part of the permit set. So do you want an actual catalog cut of the detail of the balconies and draping?
No,
Because these
no,
are
really catalog cuts for all of the products, obviously,
products
the
that we're gonna
doors and
purchase.
so
Yeah,
forth.
absolutely.
The details can be reviewed as part of plan check.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Very good.
I had two other items. Wanted clarification from the board if they wanted to make them conditions or considerations. The first one was something to the effect of the retaining walls to match the pattern of the parapet.
Some
In terms
sort
of
of
it being a Moroccan style.
Yeah, we heard that suggestion from board
Mr.
member
Yu.
Insua, but my question also was, the applicant mentioned a preference for smooth poured-in-place concrete, and just wanted to double-check that that meets with the board's approval, and that would be the right direction.
Well, my feeling is I wouldn't want to be that anything that is not, and then having said that, let the architect.
Okay, so what we'll do is provide a condition that does not allow split face block, and we could also suggest that poured-in-place concrete, the precision block, even a pattern would be acceptable, so that we have that on record and as providing flexibility to the architect for that.
Good. And equally as important is really the texture of the driveway itself, the pattern itself on the ground. Because, we have this winding driveway that goes up the street, and so that's going to be very visible from obviously Sussex. So whether they're pavers or some sort of a stamped concrete feature, or should let the designer come up with something, but I think that fifth elevation of the driveways is just as important, because as you get up, you're not going to see the walls as much from the street, but you certainly see the texture of the driveway itself.
Typically, the board has been asking in many cases for permeable paving on the driveway. Do you think that would be necessary here? Looks like a landscape designer that we know might like to speak on the matter.
Why don't you come up and try to tell us what your vision was
Judy
for that?
Palmer, 2941 Oakendale Place. I think we've discussed that with the client, and the pavers are not an option due to the steepness of the driveway. When you get to a certain steepness, it won't hold. So we've got various discussions of types of materials, but it hasn't been decided yet. But a stamped concrete of some sort with a pattern would be something we would consider.
One thing to be cognizant of is because there is that drainage pipe underneath it, one day there might be a need to open up that driveway to get to the pipe. And so when you have some sort of a material that's inset, perhaps...
But see, there's ways to do that where you might have a section that could be pavers. It's just that when you take the wheels of a car, fire engine, et cetera, up there, it won't hold. Yeah. When the whole driveway is done that way. But it could be done in portions or sections. So it's still being investigated.
Okay, good.
being worked on.
Okay. Anything else, Brad?
The second one I had was to add landscaping, for example, clinging vines or medium-sized plants in front of the balcony on the west elevation.
There's Mr. Yu.
Is that something you
That
wanted
was a
to?
suggestion made by,
A suggestion?
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I was making
That's
that
one way
suggestion
of-
to,
As
for
yeah.
your comment, so it's one way to soften it up, but
Right.
you make the call, Mr. Yu, as far as what direction you want to go with
I don't
that.
think we need to, we don't need to call it a suggestion or even a recommendation, just, I think he understands the point.
Okay.
and-
Okay.
Do you want to make it a consideration at
No,
then?
I don't
Okay,
think.
so it's been discussed.
I think we
and-
just leave it as landscape is an option that he can explore if he wants to.
So it's
do
been
something.
discussed, and the applicant has heard it, okay. All right, so just in summary then, the ones that I have here, using my words, providing cut sheets of the materials and items that are manufacturers and architectural details to be submitted as they would in the working drawings, not using split-face concrete block as the retaining walls, that's a not use, and the driveway material to explore materials in addition to stamped concrete, scored concrete, in combination with maybe pavers, to give that an architectural attention more than just concrete slab, just a slab poured up the hill. So those are the three that I have here as considerations to be reviewed. Okay? Comfortable with it?
Got it.
Okay. All right.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the project.
I second.
Oh, forgive me. I apologize. It was an email in support of the project, but I need to make it. We received an email today. Brad, you received an email today. I apologize, from a gentleman named Escott Norton, who is a homeowner, I guess, on the low side of the project. His email, very well written, very much in support of the project, but I wanted to make that known that a gentleman did respond, so please forgive me for not bringing it up sooner. Okay, back to you.
All right, this will be roll call. Mr. Simonian?
Yes?
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Chairman Insua?
Yes.
On a 3-0 vote, this project is approved. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Good job. Good project.
All right, we have one set of minutes to approve, the March 24th, 2011.
And Ms. Palmer, you're back. I will turn the
Okay.
chair position back to Ms. Palmer.
Are there any comments on those minutes? Which ones are they?
No, I don't have any comment.
Neither do I.
Let's see who was here. These-
You all were here.
We were all here.
Yep. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the minutes. This will be a roll call. Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 4-0. I don't have anything to discuss with you. Stephanie? Do you? Okay,
I move to adjourn.
thanks.
Sure.